Good morning, afternoon, everybody. We are back after a little bit of a few days of a break and doing a different topic. I don't know if everybody has seen what I've posted on Twitter, but I am currently going to um, take a little bit of a break from Everman Hybrid because I do think I can't get through all of that without back to back to back streaming it, and I really don't want to burn myself out that badly. Um, Especially since I have so much coming up in the next month for the whole month of October being streamed on horror cinema. That's going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy from me on top of creating the regular videos. So I'm not gonna go that far in trying to force it this time around. Which means that I will be doing some other stuff and trying to get what I want done for the month of October. I'm gonna start those horror cinema streams coming next weekend and start with the cinema age to 1950s when it comes to the horror cinema history, and I'm really excited to do that. I've wanted to do that for a little bit of a while, and I'm gonna get to that as soon as I possibly can. As usual, if you want to support the stream, I just got memberships. I also have the Streamlabs link, which I pinned. I have super chats now. If you want to support the stream, you can. That's absolutely only an optional thing. You do not feel like you absolutely need to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and say hi to everybody. Hey Nerdy John. Hey Oracle. Hey Nox Archive. Musky Mike. My lovely Patreon. And hi Dev End. Yeah, I'm gonna try not to burn myself out too much. I'll just have to pick it up after my break in first week of November. So probably the second weekend of November, I'll come back to Everman Hybrid and try to pick up where I left off on that. Hey Mari, Mike, do you have two? Oh no, you just changed your profile pic. Okay. I for a second you had me confused. I was like, why does Mike have two accounts? Hey Wild Artists. Today we're gonna go over some beautiful serial killer fun stuff again today, and I'm gonna go over the Axemen of New Orleans. You've probably heard of him before because he was one of the characters in American Horror Story Coven, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that to make sure that I'm not completely off, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yep, American Horror Story Coven. And he was played by Danny Hudson, who is the guy in the thumbnail for the show today. But let's go ahead and get into that. Sorry, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Trying to get going on my head, but let's talk about the Axemen of New Orleans, shall we? Coffee, yum. So the Axemen of New Orleans obviously is a serial killer from New Orleans, Louisiana, who committed his crimes and atrocities between May 1918 and October 1919. He's got about 6 victims in total, or 6 murders at least, and there were at least 6 people that he attacked that were injured or attempted murders. We don't know who this person is. We have no idea still, and we probably never will find out because of how old this case is, in the similar vein of, uh, you know, Jack the Ripper. I think this is another one of those cases that is never going to be solved. I think it's a little bit too far, and it's always going to be a mystery. If it ever happens and it ever is solved, great. That would be fucking stellar. But I don't think with how long it's been over 100 years since these happened. 102 years since it started. No, 103 years since it started. So, I don't think that it's ever going to be solved, unfortunately. Bean water. It's injected into my veins, Devin. Not literally. That'll actually hurt you. Please don't ever do that. But yeah, I run on coffee, unfortunately, and I guess fortunately because coffee is delicious. As I take a sip of it. Not awake enough myself. No, you're fine. You're fine. It's okay. It's okay, Devin. It's not a problem. But there's a little bit of background to the Axemen, and obviously, it's kind of easy to tell what exactly he did to his victims. He killed them with an axe. He attacked them with an axe. Obviously, he's the Axeman. But there's a couple other things that go with his MO that people know about and people associate with him. One of those being that he liked to remove backdoor panels to his victims' homes with a chisel, and would leave that panel that he took off by the door or near the door. He would either use an axe or a straight razor to attack his victims, and there's no signs that there was any intent of robbery. It's more likely because no items were ever removed or have been confirmed to be removed from the victims' homes that he's looking to rob them. It's pretty much he or she went in there to kill these people with the intent to do that. I boof my coffee. It's more powerful that way. I don't want to know what that is. I have a feeling I know what you're saying, Mike, but gross. It's kind of well known that he goes after a certain type of victim, like a lot of serial killers do. They usually have a particular MO when it's regard to victim. No, they weren't crimes of passion, Dirty John. I don't think it's crimes of passion if you're removing the door panel to someone's home with a chisel and then going in there and attacking them with a knife or a razor. This is blatantly attempt to murder or actual murder being committed. It's not. There's no intent to remove anything from the property from what has been said. So yeah, it's violence was the intent. It's not a crime of passion. If it's that planned out. But like I was saying, he has a typical victim that he likes to go after. I'm just going to say he because it's believed that it's a guy. And we're probably not going to... The likelihood of it being a woman is very low with how we look at serial killers and their MOs and what they like to do when it comes to killing their victims. This particular guy, the Axeman of New Orleans, liked to go after Italian immigrants or Italian Americans. And it kind of made a lot of people that have studied this particular serial killer believe that there's some sort of racism involved or an ethical motivation. And a lot of it was sensationalized by the media, trying to suggest there might be some kind of ties to the mafia or a mafioso is involved. There's been suggestions that there's a certain type of sadism that's involved, but that's not something that they really connect 100% to this. because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I don't think. However, there's some criminologists, Colin and Damon Wilson, who liked to hypothesize that he killed the male victims only when they obstructed his attempts to murder women, which is apparently supported by cases in which women of the household were murdered, but not the guy. It's a little plausible, which is also something that was suggested during that time, was that the killer committed murders in an attempt to promote jazz music. I really doubt that. It's kind of weird. And this was suggested by a letter attributed to the killer that I'm going to read in a second, who stated that he'd spare these people's lives if they play jazz music in their homes at night. Again, there is no person identified as being the perpetrator for this, and the spree ended in October of my birthday, October 27th, 1919. No, not that year. I'm definitely not that old. I'm not 100 plus years old, but it ended as mysteriously as it began, from what we could tell. Again, it's just kind of like some serial killers where they'll do their killing and then stop for whatever reason. But here is exactly what... Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Try not to burp into the mic. So if I mute, I'm trying to be ladylike. I apologize if that's a little bit jarring because I was talking. The letter says this: Hottest Hell, March 13th, 1919. So this is in the middle of the spree. Esteemed mortal of New Orleans, the Axeman. They never caught me and never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible. Even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, be smeared with the blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but his satanic majesty, Francis, Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise to know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens and the worst, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I'm going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I'm very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get my axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that I may go well with thee. I have been, and am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or realm of fancy, the Axemen. Now, this letter also puts into question puts into the heads of people the idea that the Axemen may be a Satanist. You could definitely see some narcissism in this person's way of talking about themselves. It's pretty disgusting, and it's pretty evident that this person takes pleasure in making people scared. I don't know for sure. I don't think anybody knows for sure if this is actually from the Axemen themselves. Serial killers do generally like to put themselves out to the public in an attempt to get caught so they get notoriety and fame for what they've done. They want to take some sort of responsibility for what they've done, even though they want to continue doing it. Yes, cruel irony indeed. Seems like his main goal was some misguided vengeance. I'm not sure if it's misguided vengeance. It seems more like they enjoy scaring people and enjoy the idea of seeing the horror in somebody's eyes when they kill them. It's like I am God. It's a God complex. So I don't think a misguided vengeance is what is being conveyed through this letter, in my honest opinion. That's just my thought process about it. I could be wrong, but that's just how I see it. If you guys see something else that I don't, then you let me know what you think. I just don't think that that's the case. I definitely think this is just a whole God complex thing. Yes, it's very well written. Absolutely. I can agree to that for sure, Mike. It's very well written. There's a lot of referencing to people, getting... It references people's fear of the afterlife, of hell, and that's very smart of this person, whether they be the actual Axeman or not. There are a lot of... There's not a lot... Not a lot, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking here. There isn't a lot of speculation about suspects, because there's only a few, in all honesty, but I'll go over those after I talk about the victims, just because some of the suspects are tied to the victims in certain ways for different reasons. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over that very quickly. The first victim, or two victims, are Joseph Maggio and Catherine Maggio. They're both Italian. Obviously, they're a couple. Joseph was an Italian grocer. And him and his wife were attacked on May 23rd, 1918, the very first victims of the Axeman, or at least it is believed to be that way, and they were attacked while they were sleeping. They lived at the corner of Upperland and Magnolia Streets, where they conducted their barroom and grocery. As said before, the killer broke into their home and proceeded to cut the couple's throat with a straight razor. He then proceeded to batter their heads in with an axe, to try and conceal the cause of death, possibly. Of the two, Joseph did survive the attack, but did die after being discovered by his brothers. Law enforcement agents found the murderer's bloody clothes, and it was clear that he changed into a different set of clothes upon leaving. Unfortunately, because, back then there wasn't DNA evidence, there isn't really much of that kind of stuff at all, which is why a lot of people got away with that shit. There's no way that we could possibly use that clothing to identify anybody. And even by now, it's very unlikely that we would be able to put anything together because the DNA evidence, if they still had these clothes, is degraded to such an extent that it's not, you can't use it for anything. It's not testable. There was a search of the premises afterwards, as typical, and the bodies were obviously removed. They found the bloody razor on the lawn of a neighboring property, and because of what I had explained earlier, where there really wasn't any signs of robbery or attempts to burgle the house, that was ruled out as motivation. The razor apparently that was used to kill the couple was of the brother, Andrew Maggio. But the brother had his own barbershop off of another street, and it's believed that that somebody may have gone in and stolen that razor because of an employee named Esteban Torres who told the police that the razor had been removed from the shop 2 days prior to the murder. And apparently it, or I guess it was that it was stolen, but it was removed from the premises and possibly stolen from Andrew because it was going to be fixed or honed because there was a nick in it, which obviously the nick would hurt somebody if you try to shave their face or their head. However, they went about using the barbershop items or whatever they did in there. Apparently, though, the brother was the one that discovered the bodies because he had an adjoining building or residence or apartment to the victims. And the brother says that he blames his inability to know what's going on for noise-related attacks that occurred early in the morning hours while he was drunk. So even though he lives right next to his sibling and sister-in-law, he was too drunk to realize that something was going on, which sucks and also can kind of obviously the police thought he might be the person that did it, but after breaking down the statement that he gave and the account of an unknown man who was supposedly seen lurking around the residence prior to this happening, they ruled him out. So that's one of the suspects at that time that was undoubtedly ruled out. The next victim was Louis Bessemer and his mistress, Harriet Lowe. Obviously, he goes after couples, very clear. They were attacked in the early morning hours of June 27, 1918, in the quarters at the back of the grocery store that was located off the corner of Dorgenoy and La Harpe Streets. Like the other victims, it was believed that a hatchet was used to strike Bessemer and cause his death, whereas Miss Howe, or Harriet, not Howe, Harriet Lowe, I don't know how I got that mixed up, was hacked over the left ear and found unconscious when the police arrived at the scene. They were discovered the next morning by a person named John Zanka, a driver of the bakery wagon who'd basically come in order to make a routine delivery to the premises. He found them both in a puddle of their own blood, both bleeding from their heads. Obviously, they were hit with a hatchet, which was also found in the bathroom of the apartment. This particular one was believed to be ownership, under or in the ownership of Bessemer. So Axeman basically got a hold of Bessemer's own hatchet and basically attempted to murder them with it. Bessemer survived, clearly, because he did later talk to the police and stated that he'd been sleeping when he was bashed in the head with the hatchet, which was the same thing that happened with the Maggios. So we already know now that the Axeman likes to go after couples, and he likes to go after them in the middle of the night when they're sleeping. Here's your MO right there. The police arrested a potential subject named Louis Obacon. Unfortunately, this seems to possibly have been a racial thing because Obacon was African American, and he was apparently in the store and had been employed by the Bessemers just a week before the attacks. Again, there's no evidence to prove him guilty, but the police arrested him and said that he had offered conflicting accounts of his whereabouts the morning he attacked. Lowe did say that I guess these two didn't die, they survived, because Lowe stated that she remembered being attacked by a mulatto man. What the hell does that mean? I'm gonna figure out what that means. Oh, okay, mulatto is somebody who's mixed African and European ancestry, so possibly half black. I'm sorry, that seems to be a slur. I was not aware that was a racial slur. I apologize. I never heard that before, so I don't mean to offend anybody. I apologize if that's the case. But that statement she made was discounted because if she was in a delusional state. Obviously, when you're being hit in the head, you're not going to be believed because you're probably not completely there mentally to make any statements that are 100% believable. Once again, there's no evidence that this particular case had any intent of being a robbery, or there's no intent to rob. Nothing was stolen. And Obacon was later released because obviously they had no evidence to keep him or hold him accountable. I'm more inclined to believe that they had only arrested him because of his race, which is pretty fucked up, and it's not something that's condoned nowadays. Media eventually did believe that Bessemer was involved himself, because there was a series of letters written in German, Russian, and Yiddish that were discovered in a trunk in the man's home. And after he was released, the lead investigators of the case were thankfully demoted due to unacceptable police work. Thank you. I'm assuming that it has something to do with Mr. Obacon being arrested for no reason and treated the way he was. Or at least I would like to hope. He was once again Bessemer was again arrested in August of 1918 after Harriet had a failed surgery, and said that he was the one that attacked her with the hatchet in that particular instance. He was charged with murder and served 9 months in prison before being acquitted on May 1st of 1919 after a 10-minute jury deliberation. I guess you could say she did die from the attack later. Harriet did die later because they couldn't repair her paralyzed face, and I'm not surprised that she would say that she wasn't to be believed. So I guess that's victim number 3 is Harriet Lowe, because she did eventually die of her injuries. She just didn't die at the scene. The next person that was attacked was Anna Schneider on August 5th, 1918. Unfortunately, she was 8 months pregnant, and she woke from her sleep to find a figure standing over her, and they ended up bashing her face repeatedly. Her scalp was cut open, and her face was covered in blood. She was discovered by her husband, Ed Schneider, who returned late from work, and she ended up thankfully surviving and having a healthy baby, thank God. But she just... There's no real evidence of anything that could help anybody figure out who exactly attacked her. They did think that an ex-convict named James Gleason was responsible, but he was released due to lack of evidence as well. And he didn't make himself look very good because he did kind of run from the police, saying that he was arrested often. I mean, if you're known for being a person that is not of high regard and is a criminal, you're gonna make yourself look bad in the long run if you try to run. At this point, they were starting to connect all of these murders. They connected this one, or attacks, they connected this one to the Bessemer and Maggio attacks as well. The next person that was attacked was Joseph Romano, on August 10th, 1918. His nieces, who he'd been living with because he was an elderly man, woke to the sound of commotion in the other room where their uncle slept. And they entered to see their uncle had been hit over the head with 2 big open cuts on it. And they arrived. They didn't really get a good look at the guy that did it because he was running away. But they did say that he was dark-skinned, heavy-set, and wore a dark suit and slouched hat. I don't know if that's also a racist thing again. I can assume in that time period that was very common, so I don't know. Unfortunately, though, Romano did die from his injuries 2 days later, and in this case, it seemed as though there might have been an attempt to rob, or at least make it look like there was a robbery being committed, but there was nothing that was stolen. This was connected to the other attacks because a bloody axe was found in the backyard, and a panel on the back door had been chiseled away, just like it was typical for the Axemen to do. This is where a lot of chaos started to begin, with everybody around, because there's a killer on the loose. There's a serial murderer running around. I would only assume that definitely would freak people out. I'm pretty sure that isn't racist, but I'm white, so not the best expert on what is racist and what isn't. The only ways that I'm saying that it might be racist motivation is because of the time period, and racism was extremely common among, those of European descent, even those that are immigrants. And a lot of these people were claiming that it was an African-American person that was doing it. Even though it seems to me that they're not getting a really good look at the person to begin with. So that's the only reason why I'm, stating that there's a possibility of racism being an underlying factor with who is being picked up Knox Archive. And to your comment, Dev, we are going to be doing a stream together. He's going to be joining me for the history of horror cinema for the 1960s and 1970s, which is going on not next weekend, but the weekend after that. So Knox will be on stream with me in 2 weeks to do that. We've already set something up so that will happen. To your happiness, I'm assuming. Yeah, he mentioned that he really likes Alfred Hitchcock, and that's around the time when he started doing his horror films, so I might as well bring Knox on to talk about it with me, make it a little bit more fun. I wish I had somebody that could come on with me and talk next weekend, but I don't really have anybody that I know of that would want to talk about earliest horror cinema, though it is the most interesting because of how things change so quickly with technology and such. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Where was I? Gotta find where I was in my notes. Around the time that everybody was starting to freak out, there was a guy named John D'Antonio, who was at the time a retired Italian detective, made a lot of public statements saying that he thinks the man who committed these murders was the same person who was involved with murders in 1911. He cited a lot of summaries by which several homicides have been committed, and he wanted to assume that there was the same individual, stating that he thinks that this person had maybe dual personalities who had no motive to kill other than to kill. And this person would, like most serial killers, would come off like a normal, law-abiding citizen and then is overwhelmed by the desire to kill and goes on to do so. Kind of like, you guess it, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Not surprised that they make that kind of, reference to that. The next person who... Hey, what's up, Eric? How you doing, my friend? Good to see you come by. I'm really glad to see y'all. But the next person that was a victim was Charles Cortimiglia. I'm trying to pronounce these Italian names that are sometimes a little bit intricate. As the rest, he's an Italian immigrant with his wife, Rosie, and daughter Mary, who are also involved in this, unfortunately. And they all lived off of Jefferson Avenue and 2nd Street in Gretna, Louisiana, which is a New Orleans suburb across the Mississippi River. Oh no, you got discovered. Oh no. But they were attacked on the night of March 10th, 1919. And screams were heard coming from their residents by a grocer from across the street, Orlando Giordano. That sounds like Orlando Jordan, who's a former WWE wrestler. That's kind of funny to me, but I digress. He noticed that Charles, his wife, and the daughter had been attacked by an unknown intruder, obviously. Rosie was standing in the doorway with a huge head wound, holding Mary, who unfortunately had died due to the blows to her head. Charles was on the floor, bleeding from his head as well. They were rushed to Cherry Hospital, and it was discovered they both had skull fractures. It was seen once again that there was no sign of an attempt to rob them. But like most of the others, the back door had been chiseled away and there was a bloody axe found on the back porch. Charles did survive and was released 2 days after he was put into the hospital. His wife remained in the care of the hospital for a little while longer. When she did come to, she says that Orlando Giordano and his 18-year-old son Frank was responsible for the attacks, which didn't make any sense because Orlando was 69 at the time and in really poor health, so there's no way he could have committed those crimes. And Frank was 6 feet tall and was over 200 pounds and would have been too large to fit through the panel in the back door. Even even her husband, Charles, was like, this is dumb. This isn't what happened. There's no way. But even though there were so many protests and there was really no good reason, or there were really better reasons why they couldn't have done it, they were still arrested and charged for the murder. They were also found guilty, and Frank was sentenced to death, and his father was put in prison for life. Because of this, Charles did divorce his wife, Rosie, which is very controversial still at that time. So he basically said, fuck you, I'm out, you lied about this. And she did admit a year later that she had falsely accused the two out of jealousy and spite. This had literally only been the only evidence against them, and because she had admitted that she lied, they were thankfully released before either of them died in the fate that they were about to be sentenced to. Frank wasn't going to be hanged, and his father, Orlando, was not going to die in prison. That's thankfully what happened. The next person that was a victim was Steve Boca, who was also a grocer, weirdly enough. He was attacked in his bedroom as he slept like the others by an axe-wielding intruder on August 10th, 1919. He states that he woke up in the middle of the night to find somebody looming over his bed. He was attacked, and once he regained the consciousness, regained consciousness from what had happened, he went into the street to investigate the intrusion, only to find out that his head was busted open. He went to his neighbor's house, Frank Ganusa, and then finally lost consciousness again, which is not surprising. Like the other crimes, the back door was busted open. There wasn't anything taken, and thankfully for Boca, he did recover from his injuries. Unfortunately for him, couldn't remember anything of what happened. And this is the first crime that happened after that letter I read earlier was released to the public. So this is just stoking fucking flames of people getting upset. The second to last victim was Sarah Lahman, who was attacked on the night of September 3rd, 1919. Her neighbors came to check on her because she lived alone, and broke in when they couldn't get an answer from her. She was found unconscious, laying in bed, and had a severe head injury and was missing several teeth. It was noted that the intruder came in through a back window, attacked her with a bloody axe that was discovered in the front lawn of the building. Thankfully, she did recover and survived, but she couldn't remember anything of who attacked her and couldn't make any headway in helping identify him. The very last person that was attacked is Mike Pepitone, who was attacked on the night of October 27th, 1919. His wife woke up to a noise and arrived at the door of the bedroom while a large axe-wielding man was leaving the scene. Obviously, she couldn't give any really good characteristics of the killer. And she noted that her husband had been hit over the head, was covered in blood. There was blood all over the room, including a painting of the Virgin Mary. Obviously, they're religious. Unfortunately did die, but this is the last time that any account or victim of the axe murder came about. This is the last victim. Nothing else has been connected to this point. Here are some of the people, once again, that, could have possibly been the suspects, or could have been the axe murderer for one reason or another. As referenced earlier, criminologist and crime writer Colin Wilson thinks that the Axeman was possibly Joseph Bonfrey, a man shot to death in Los Angeles in December 1920 by the widow of Mike Pepitone, who was the last victim, as we'd spoken about. This is kind of repeated a lot on True Crime Books' website, but another writer, Michael Newton, looked through New Orleans and Los Angeles public, police, and court records with the news archives and could not find any evidence of anybody by the name of Joseph Bonfrey having been assaulted or killed in Los Angeles. So he couldn't find the person that's being widely speculated as the person that killed these people. He also couldn't find anything about Miss Pepitone, who was identified in some sources as Esther Albano, and in some as the woman who claimed to be Pepitone's widow. You couldn't find anything about her being arrested for any kind of crime, or even being in California, because apparently that's where she was at the time. Newton also notes that Momfrey is not an unusual surname in New Orleans during this time, and it looks like there may have been somebody by the name of Momfrey or Mumfrey in New Orleans with a criminal history, it also being connected to organized crime, but there's not enough there are not enough records to confirm any of this or even positively identify who exactly this person is. It's believed, even though, or at least believed by Newton and people who are aware of the situation, that Wilson created an urban legend of this Joseph Mumfrey in order to try and identify the killer and get some sort of glory out of identifying somebody that possibly could have done it. There's another person who's allegedly, or two other people who are allegedly victims of the Axemen. They're an Italian couple named Sciambra that were shot by an intruder in their Lower Ninth Ward home in May 16th, 1912. The husband survived, the wife died. This person was also, the person that was involved was also apparently named Momfrey more than once in the papers for this. But unfortunately, this does not seem to be connected because the modus operandi is different. There's a must make more. I'm probably going to be done pretty soon, so don't worry about it. Knox. Even though people would like to say this is the same person, the Axemen did not use a gun at all. It's completely different than any of the other people that are connected to the Axemen. Another person who was pointed out that's similar was pointed out by a scholar named Richard Warner, and states that he believes the person that's involved was a Frank Doc Mumfrey, who was used the alias Leon Joseph Monfrey or Manfrey, which all these names seem similar. I don't think copycat, Eric, because the Axeman doesn't use a gun, and this is prior to those murders. This is like 7 years before those murders began. So I would think it's somebody completely different that committed these crimes. Just happens that somebody by the similar name, which I already stated that Mumfrey or Munfrey is not a uncommon name or surname for people in New Orleans around the time of the Axemen murders. So could just very well be somebody with a similar name that kind of connects to theories already out there. So there's that. The Axeman has been a very well-known case, or very similar to Jack the Ripper, as I've said, ever since around that time that this all occurred. Like, the first piece of popular pop culture or media that came out because of this came in 1919 when a local tune writer named Joseph John DeVia wrote the song "The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz Don't Scared Me Papa." This one basically was put out by World's Music Publishing Company from New Orleans, and the cover basically had a picture of a family playing music with different frightened looks on their face. So they're literally going right at that. There's a book that came out that's includes a chapter entitled Axeman's Jazz, and that is a 1945 book called Gumbo, Yaya, a collection of Louisiana folktales. This one also reproduced the same cover of the Mysterious Axeman's Jazz music cover. There's an Australian rock band called Beast Suburban who released an album in 1984 called The Axeman's Jazz. Writer Julie Smith fictionalized the Axeman in during the events in her 1991 novel The Axeman's Jazz. The killings were referred to in a short story, Mussolini and the Axeman's Jazz, by Poppy Z. Bright, that was published in 1997. In 2005, a novel called Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk had the Axemen mentioned in Sister Vigilante's short story. Another song named Death Jazz by a rock band named One Ton Project called Death Jazz kind of parallels the story of the Axemen. There's a sentence in the letter to the Times Picayune that's spoken at the beginning of Fela Brazia's song Tunstall and California Haddock. As you could tell, this is like this has been referenced so many times, just like Jack the Ripper was. Another novel, Red, White, and Blood, centers around a murderous spirit called the Boogeyman, who apparently inhabits a lot of murders around numerous bodies throughout history. And one of those is apparently Axemen of New Orleans. This book was written by Christopher Farnsworth in 2012. Another novel was written by Ray Calliston in 2014 called The Axeman's Jazz, which did a whole fictionalized version of this case. The biggest one that I'm definitely aware of is him being a character in American Horror Story season 3, or American Horror Story Coven, which was initially introduced in the episode The Axeman Cometh. He's the love interest for the Sorceress Supreme in this particular one, and I enjoyed that season quite a bit. I'm not gonna lie. Also mentioned in several episodes of the originals. He was in a short story called A Slinking Agent of the Devil at 3 a.m., Opus 1. That's part of a dark fiction anthology, The Egg, written by Hildred Rex. And there's just so much more. I think the most recent instance of him being mentioned is in the virtual reality game The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, where he's referenced several times in certain dialogue. You can also find a special axe in a safe at some point with a little phrase, "The Axeman cometh," nearby it. This particular character, like the Axeman, was referenced to of liking jazz. And there's a famous quote of the Axeman's letter that's used to describe the special axe that can be found, known as the Esteemed Mortal. So this guy is everywhere. Everywhere. And it's so fascinating to see how people try to bring such a famous unsolved case into pop culture. This is really all I've got for the Axemen. There isn't a ton to go over with him, just because it's a very short window with 12 victims in total. And there isn't a whole lot that can be drawn with regards to some other cases like Jack the Ripper, where there's so many different people that could possibly be involved. There isn't that with this. There isn't a whole lot that could be said. Yes, I would agree. He has become kind of a supernatural presence in contrast to other serial killers, mostly because I think of that letter. Because that letter refers to hell and the angel of death, to Tartarus. There is a lot of references to him being more supernatural because of that. With Jack the Ripper, I absolutely believe, I guess you could say he's kind of an idea, but I think people think of Jack the Ripper more as an amalgamation of pure evil and all the things that make people evil. Again, we're never going to find out who either of these people are. We're never going to find out who actually committed these crimes. We can assume that they were, because of the modus operandi and how they were enacted, that these victims are connected, but I have no idea. Yeah, like, I remember there's a lot of things that they found that was fake or completely false when it comes to a bunch of different things, but there really isn't a whole lot more to talk about with this particular guy. So I am probably going to call it, but I will be back next weekend with hopefully the video on the highway murderer, Larry Eiler. I'm almost done with that script, about halfway done with that. I hope to have it done today or tomorrow and get that out for you guys by next weekend. And we will also start the series of streams on horror cinema and the history of that. So I hope you guys will join me for that. At the end of next month, before the last stream for horror cinema, where I talk about the modern stuff, I will be having a birthday stream. My birthday is the 27th of October, so I'll probably be on to play some horror games and shoot the shit with you guys. So I hope you'll be able to come and hang out for a little bit, and I had a good time the last time I did a birthday stream, but it's probably gonna be a little different now that the audience size is bigger. I don't know about shots dev end, only because I don't have a gallbladder, and since I got my gallbladder removed, my tolerance for alcohol has gone down a lot. And even just a glass of wine makes me very tipsy and a little bit sick. So I don't think I'll do drinks or anything like that, but I'm definitely gonna try to have a good time with you guys. I'd love to do what Tipster does and some other creators do with the shots for donations, but it's not a good idea with my constitution and me being sick. Yeah, you could do that probably. I don't know if I'll keep it up afterwards, because if we do songs, then there's copyright, but I'll see if I can do something, a little something to have a little bit of fun. Yeah, I could do shots of like something else, but not alcohol. Maybe that sounds like fun. Mountain Dew. I can get maybe the Voodoo Mountain Dew and do shots of that. I don't know, maybe. I don't think it's as tempting for for people because it's not alcohol. But yeah, I could do that. I could go see if I can get some Voodoo Mountain Dew and keep it for that. That'd be fun. Hey, Speedy Door. I'm about to end it, but thank you for stopping by and say hello. I am gonna get off. I've got some stuff that got to get done. I have a script to write. But thank you guys for coming out and talking serial killers with me, and I do hope to see you in the coming weekends, in the coming streams, to talk about horror cinema. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and weekend. I will see you again very soon, and sweet nightmares.